If you're new to these weekly live Q&As, we are going to answer all of your questions live, and we're going to start first with some pre-submitted questions that came from last week's live Q&A session. So if you want to get your questions answered first each week, go ahead and drop your questions as a comment under this video if it didn't get answered today.
Great.
What do you say we go to the first question?
Yeah, what's our first question, Jake?
All right, the first question's a big one. Will Amazon make me a millionaire? So this is a really good question, and I think there's a lot of different ways to answer this. I think there's like a very subjective or definite way I could answer it, and I could say yes. I mean, any type of business model, if you put enough time, you make it successful enough, can make you a millionaire. But I want to actually take a step back and maybe define what's a millionaire. I think a lot of people think it's like you need to have $1 million in sales or you need to make $1 million in profit. But typically that's not the case. You just need to have $1 million asset or assets worth $1 million. So one of the best ways of doing that on Amazon is to create your own private label brand. And there's a lot of different business models out there. There's wholesale, which is very popular. There's arbitrage, there's drop shipping. The one major downside to those business models, while they are great, is that it's not technically an asset that you own. You're really borrowing someone else's brand and selling their products, and you're making profit along the way, but you're not building a sellable asset. And so that's why we're very bullish on the private label model, because you are building your own asset that someone is could be willing to buy from you in the future. So yes, I will say Amazon is still a great way to make $1 million or become a millionaire with $1 million in assets. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this, but the best way, in my opinion, would just be through private label.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't really have too much to add. There's really just the oversimplified version. Like you said, yes, you can become a millionaire from it, just the same as you can from many other things. On the flip side, you can also lose a lot of money on Amazon the same way that you can do that with whatever, real estate, crypto, investments, I don't know, other online businesses.
Yeah.
So, that's a big one.
And one thing I actually want to show here as well. So this is our annual State of the Amazon Seller Report. It's completely free to download. I highly recommend you checking it out. It's in the description of this video. But this is, you can see here, the lifetime profits of, on the left-hand side here, we have small to medium-sized businesses. And then on the right, really big enterprise brands and retailers. And it's really interesting to see here how much over the lifetime they've made. So you can see here 85% of enterprise brands have made in profit over $1 million. And there's a lot of cool, helpful insights in here. Like one other stat I really love is the amount of profit margins you can expect to make on Amazon. Out of the SMB sellers, almost half of them are making a 15% margin, which is pretty good. Anywhere around 15 and up is excellent. And so then you can see here what that looks like for enterprise brands. Highly recommend checking out this report. It's for free download that you can get in the description of this video, but it can sort of help answer that question of what you can expect as a new seller on Amazon.
Great. What's our next question?
All right. So our next question here is it okay to ask my family and friends to write me a review when they buy my products?
Good question. That used to be very, very popular. I remember doing that when I launched my first products. I haven't done it in recent times. So I don't know. I'm guessing, I'm sure like Amazon's cracking down on it more and more, but I don't know for sure.
It's one of those gray areas, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't do it or I haven't done it. But I would just say be very careful if you do that. Maybe don't abuse it. Amazon is very smart. They're able to, this is not public information, and I don't know if this is true or not, but what a lot of people assume is that they're able to crawl social media just how we're able to go on social media. And if, you know, your last name is Jones and your family and friends are buying your products and leaving you really great positive reviews, they can catch on to that. They could see things like your addresses, if, you know, that address of the reviewer is similar to yours, or if you've ever shared that address. Maybe they do crawl social media, I don't know, but that is one way that they could find out and penalize you for it. So I would just say be very careful. You can have your family buy your products. You just can't incentivize good reviews, and Amazon really cracks down on that. So just be aware of the major downsides, which is either a suspension, maybe a warning, but the suspension to me is almost reason enough not to do it. So like if I were to launch a new product, I might get a couple people that are outside of my network to buy my product and then let them leave a review, but not me influence that in any way.
Makes sense.
A good question. The next one here. I sell one product now. Should I look to add another one or just continue focusing on my current one?
That's a good question. It depends on the stage of your product, where it's at. Have you fully maximized optimizing the listing, really optimizing your PPC campaigns? Both of those, there is always going to be a degree of doing that on an ongoing basis regardless, but there's quite a bit of work that I would put into those things for a while, for at least the first months or maybe a year of that product. I've made a mistake in the past of trying to launch subsequent products too soon. And what happened to me is I ended up with a cash flow problem where I was trying to take some of the profits from my first product to invest in the next one, but I kind of overextended, and then I ran out of inventory on the first product because I had sort of put my money into another product, and then I sort of sold myself short. I had too little stock for both products, and they both ended up suffering. So cash flow, I found, is the biggest reason not to launch that second product. If you cash flow, but also focus, because if you're launching another product, you're not going to be giving that same time and energy to the first product, which comes back to my first point of really make sure you've done everything you really can to kind of give that first product the best chance of success before you shift your time and energy into another product. But that's just my opinion.
I like that. I would pretty much say the same thing. Don't overload yourself just to sell another product. To your point, I think cash flow is the most important thing.
Great. What do we got next here?
All right. Our next pre-submitted question is, do you recommend using 3PL storage to save on Amazon storage fees?
Ooh, I feel like it's a good question. It's very relevant for us right now because we're trying to answer that same question. We've actually been testing out. We've been testing out Amazon's AWD, which is kind of their storage 3PL type service that automatically sends inventory into FBA. And that process has been really cool. It's interesting how Amazon will just automatically send in the inventory for you. That's a really neat feature. But one limitation of it is that it doesn't take oversized units. So we have some oversized units, our Jungle Sticks, which we actually have in a separate 3PL. And I guess at the moment, we're just starting to dig into the pricing between the two and trying to understand whether or not, or essentially which one is going to be sort of better value and sort of a better experience overall. So I don't know which is better out of those, but was the question more, should you use one in general?
I think in general, but yeah, I like your thoughts there, because like one thing that we're finding out is over Q4, where Amazon fees are insanely high. Depending on the company that you go with, some 3PLs are cheaper than Amazon's Q4 pricing. So for us, one thing that we want to look into next year or next Q4 is there a cheaper way for us to store our inventory in the United States where we're selling? Is that Amazon? Is that a 3PL? So I guess for us, that's something that we're going to consider later in the year. But we right now like the convenience of FBA.
Yeah.
Great question. All right, let's move on to the next one, which is, I live in North Carolina. How do I know what warehouse to send my shipments to? I assume this is maybe like going from your factory, maybe it's in China, to Amazon. Is that how you're interpreting the question?
I guess it could either be from the factory or it could be from your own home, assuming that you're inspecting the goods or getting it sent to yourself. But I think the answer is the same regardless. You don't need to decide. Yeah. Ultimately, you create a shipment within Seller Central, and Amazon will determine and nominate where you need to send your inventory. Now, what is important, the main way that you can influence that is there's a section at the start of that process where you put your from address. So you want to put in the address of wherever your inventory is coming from.
Yeah.
So maybe that's from your home in North Carolina, or maybe that's from a factory in China. But essentially, you want to put in that address, and Based off of that, Amazon will determine where you need to ship your products. So
Right.
if you do have all of the inventory yourself, then make sure to put your North Carolina address, and then most likely Amazon's going to find a fulfillment center that's in your part of the country. So that's probably the main piece of advice I'd say, is just to make sure that your ship from address is up to date, and then Amazon will do the rest, and generally figure out the best place for you to send it.
Perfect. Great questions. All right, next question. Can I change my brand name from generic to a new brand name? So, Lenny, I had to look this one up because I actually didn't know the answer. I thought it was a yes, like you can change from generic to or a regular brand name. Upon my investigation, no, you can't. So this actually is very surprising to me, but once you go generic, you're basically selling that product as a generic product. And then whether you get brand registry or not, and you want to change that brand name to, like, let's say Lenny's dog products, that's a whole new product in Amazon's eyes. Even if the product itself is the exact same, you literally do nothing other than you now have a trademark for it, or you put your logo on the packaging. Amazon still says that's a different product. It's really unfortunate.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that.
I didn't realize that either. I looked it up on a few forums. You can literally just type this question in on Google and maybe put in Seller Central after that, and probably find what I found on this. But it is a little unfortunate. So maybe if you're looking to get a trademark for your brand name and you want to get your product on Amazon first, maybe don't add that generic in there. I think that locks it. I could be wrong. Maybe you have to do that.
I thought you maybe had to do that. Like you had to either put a brand name or generic, but I could be wrong.
So this is an interesting, then what do you do in that case? I actually don't know the answer to that right now. I haven't gone through that myself. There's unfortunately just not a way to switch it. Amazon thinks it should be a different product, and they advise you to create a new ASIN.
Oh, wow.
Now the question remains, like, could you get those reviews moved over? That's an interesting question that I don't know the answer to, but potentially that could be the workaround to this is you do create a new ASIN, you add your brand name to it, you just redo the listing, and then you open a case to get Amazon to switch over the reviews. I don't know if that's doable, but a good next question to try to figure out.
Yeah, I'll have to do some investigating on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Next question. Can we register a trademark in the US using a foreign company? Do you have any experience on this?
I believe so. Yes. Let's see. I think I did do that. I'm trying to remember now because I had an Australian company, and then I set up a US LLC, and then I've got a trademark. I'm actually, maybe I'll backtrack. I think maybe I actually had my US LLC when I applied for a trademark. So I don't know I don't want to say anything off the top of my head because I don't know for sure. I imagine you would be able to, but that's just an assumption.
I will say I put this in the chat GPT a little bit ago because I didn't know the answer myself. But from what I found is that you can. The major thing is you probably want to hire a trademark attorney in the United States because you want to use their address, their office address.
Right.
I believe that's one of the requirements is you need to put some sort of address, like mailing address. And of course, if you don't live in the United States, but you want to get a trademark here, you will need an address. So that's why they recommended to get a trademark attorney to help you. That way, yeah, you can use their address for your mailing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
It does look doable. Similar question. Can you recommend a business-friendly state for me to establish my LLC as a non-U.S. resident? So, someone trying to do the whole LLC thing from outside the U.S. Any good states that you can recommend that make it easy for you?
Where did I start out? I'm trying to remember now. There was like two that I feel like everyone recommends. Delaware,
Wyoming.
Yeah, I think I set one up in Wyoming, and then I ended up paying a lot of money to shift it to Texas, just because I'm like, I live here. I just want everything here.
I think the major things you want to think about is, and this is just like research that you can do, and there's probably some articles that do side-by-side comparisons, is how easy is it to apply? How easy is it to renew? So like your paperwork that you have to do every year, is there an annual fee involved? Some states will charge an annual fee. Some might be higher, some might be lower, some might be zero. So look at those things, and then if you're using like LegalZoom, they help you with the paperwork, but they don't help you renewing every single year. So maybe look into hiring some help there. I actually, through LegalZoom, if you're going to use LegalZoom, you can hire somebody through there. It's similar to like QuickBooks if you're familiar. You can use QuickBooks as software, but hire a QuickBooks expert tax manager. So I would recommend doing that and having someone kind of walk you through maybe like the actual sign up process, but then once a year checking in on the renewals for any paperwork.
Nice.
Yeah. Good question. Next one. How can I list a product that comes in a pack of 3 individual products? Now, I think if I remember this question correctly, we're trying to shorten these questions so it fits underneath here. But the added context here was they have 3 individual products, I assume, and they're trying to basically package it in as one. So a 3-pack of those 3 individual products. The way I know how to do that, there's 2 ways. Maybe there's more or another way of doing this that you could recommend, but is to one, like actually package them together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just get a brand new UPC barcode or FNSKU barcode, and you attach it on the packaging. Whatever UPC or FNSKU barcode is on the packaging, that's the one that Amazon cares about. Even if you open the box and there's individual products in there with individual FNSKU codes on there, that doesn't matter. Whatever the code over top the packaging is, that's the one that Amazon will use. So the first way is to actually get your supplier to bundle them together, package them together, and then put a barcode, a brand new barcode over top. And that brand new barcode is basically your 3-pack bundle product. The other way of doing it, which is a little more easier if you want to just have Amazon basically do the work for you, you can create a virtual bundle. And that essentially is like you just send a bunch of inventory into Amazon, different SKUs, and you tell Amazon, hey, I want to create a bundle so that people can buy these 2 products together. So when they buy that bundle, Amazon's just picking up off the shelf these 2 products, putting them in a box, and sending them to the customer for you. The upsides of that is super easy. There's very minimal added cost since you're not having your supplier like repackage and buy a new label for you. The downside is I don't think you can fully advertise with it.
Yeah.
There's some weird limitations there that Amazon's still making you have to deal with, but that's the biggest downside. Is it is a new listing, but it's not like a full listing because you can't advertise on it. So it's a little weird, but
I'd say that I would personally say that's like a good short-term solution if I know like people do that. Yeah, either to test out selling 2 products together, or they're trying to get rid of some stock, and so they bundle it together and offer a discount or whatever. So I think it's good. It's a good tool to have in the short term, but in the long term, if you're serious about selling these 2 products or 3 products as a bundle, then you're better off going with the first option and actually getting them packaged together. You could either ask, if they're coming from different factories as well, you could ask your main factory to package them together to see if they're willing to. Maybe they'll charge you a little bit more and you get the others to send it to that one factory.
Right.
If it all comes from the one place, then that's even easier. Or you can send all 3 products to another service, like a 3PL that might offer packaging and labeling services to kind of package it for you. So there's a few different ways there. Certainly it can get a little bit more complicated, but at the same time, that could also be a great differentiator between you and a competitor because you offer all these products together.
Yeah. Awesome. Next question here. In the Jungle Scout product database, every product I see shows high demand, but why does the opportunity look different on Amazon? This is a good question, actually. Maybe I'll share my screen for this because there is a difference between using the product database here, where if I'm putting in filters to say, find me products that minimum sell 500 units a month, so high demand products, what shows up in a moment down below will be different than what's going to show up on Amazon because you're looking at individual products only. So what you need to be very, aware of is the database is looking for individual products on Amazon that meet your criteria that you put up here in the filters. So all these products down here will have 500 monthly sales or more, but that doesn't mean that category itself does. So let's say we found a product over on the database and it's like this dog couch cover, right? Maybe it was this product here that has 461 daily sales. You still need to come to the extension and verify the niche as a whole. So we can see here out of these 32 products just on page 1, I can load more to go past page 1, that the average monthly sales is 4,500. So that confirms to me that this is a high demand product. Assuming these are all relevant products, if one of these are different than what I'm actually intending to sell, I can just click on it, hide it, and that updates the data here. But you just want to make sure that whatever products you're finding on here, that you understand that this is like an idea generation tool essentially, and then you come over to the extension and other tools to verify the niche as a whole. So I would say just keep that in mind as you're doing product research using Jungle Scout's product database and other tools.
Great.
Awesome. So I think we have one more pre-submitted questions here before the live one. So Lenny, this question is, can I combine two of my products by adding them into a parent ASIN and still keep all the reviews?
I mean, I guess what you can't do is add a completely different product as a variation on another product. If it's a genuine variation of that product, then I would say yes. Like if you already sell a water bottle and now you want to combine a water bottle and a spoon or something, you could add that you could bundle that and add it as a new variation, but you couldn't add a completely random product to that listing and keep the reviews.
Right. Yeah, I think the biggest thing on the back end that Amazon needs to know, so when you're adding it as a variation, you want to make sure that the keyword, or it's the, there's two field types, the category type keyword and the item type keyword are the exact same as the product you're adding it to. There's actually Stephen Pope has an amazing video on YouTube about how to make sure that you do this right. So typically when you add a variation, it should work, but for some reason, if those category keywords are different or the item type keywords are different, then Amazon won't carry over the reviews. They might let you add it to a variation, but the reviews could be different. So I would highly recommend watching Stephen Pope's video on this. You can literally probably just type this question on YouTube and maybe put in Stephen Pope, my Amazon guy, and he has a great video walking you through that. But as long as the field types are the exact same, and to your point, it is the exact same product, just a variation of it, that should work.
Okay, great. Let's get into some live questions.
All righty. So thank you guys. I see a bunch of questions being asked in here. Maybe we'll start at the top.
Yeah.
So we have a question here is for selling adult toys on Amazon, are there specific approval requirements or restrictions I need to be aware of? Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, this is one of those areas where even like just kid toys, there's definitely certain certificate or requirements that you need to sell them. So most categories, or maybe I won't say most, but a lot of categories on Amazon, there are some sort of approval requirement just to list a product in. And this would definitely be one of them. The answer is to just Google this question actually, or to put in, adult toys, Amazon restrictions or approval requirements, exactly what you asked here. And typically you will find a page, whether it's by Amazon, hopefully, or some other third-party Amazon company that writes about this stuff. And they'll list basically the certifications you might need or the requirements you may need. So yeah, each category is going to be wildly different on what you need to be required. And this wouldn't be an exception.
Yeah, one little tip here is just go to catalog, add products as if you're adding a product, and then type in the name of the product that you're looking for. I don't even know what to type in, but it will essentially show you, you type in any name, and it'll basically tell you whether that particular category is gated or not. So like, yeah, actually go back and type in like lockpick. Lockpick. Pretty sure that's one where you'll see an example. Yeah, lockpick set. And
come over here to probably show
limitations.
You are not approved, so you probably learn more.
Yeah, so you're essentially kind of like looking for that. Like, it'll tell you if it's gated or not. Actually, if you type in supplement, you'll see an example.
A better example, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a good way before you obviously go ahead and actually sell anything to kind of test and see how easy it is to even sell that product. Cool. And so then you'll see, like apply to sell.
Oh yeah, it's just grayed out.
So there you'll see you need approval to list in this brand. And so essentially by doing this trick, you'll figure out like whether you need approval or not.
Awesome. That's a good little shortcut to finding out that answer.
Yeah.
All right. Next question here. What is the average estimated time for someone to officially start FBA?
I've been diving. Oh my gosh, I should remember this because I've been deep in this report for like the last week.
Which, by the
But
way,
most sellers, because I did a video on this, most sellers, I can't remember. I think it's like over half of sellers get started in under 6 months. It's time and money, so it's chapter 6. So yeah, after page 29.
fewer than so right here, almost 3/4 were able to get it going up in 6 months.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. By the way, this report, guys, totally free download. Check it out. It's in the description of this video. It's called the State of the Amazon Seller Report. There's a bunch of helpful data like this. Highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. So this is, from a wide pool of sellers, but I would also give the same kind of answer. Under 6 months, it sort of depends. Yeah, you can see a lot of people, probably the biggest category there is 3 to 6 months, which would sound about right, but some people even do it in less, 6 weeks to 3 months.
Yeah.
Fewer than 6 weeks is insane, but I would say 3 to 6 months is kind of a good average.
This is also just like time spent on the business isn't in here. So like a lot of people only spend, this is like less than a side job, even 4 to 10 hours a week on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, great report here. Highly recommend checking that out.
Cool.
Good question.
Okay.
Yeah, another question here for FBM. So fulfilling your own orders. When you receive your products that you've bought from your supplier, how do you properly ship them out to your buyers?
Oh, yeah. We actually have a whole video on that, which you can check out if you just
Yeah.
type in FBM into our channel. But yeah, essentially when you're doing FBM, that whole responsibility is on you. So there are a lot of different ways you can go about it. You can just go to your local post office, go to FedEx. You can, basically you just have to organize it yourself. But probably what you're getting at is like coming up with a system where you can automate it as much as possible, get the best pricing, etc. And that's where I'd probably recommend our video.
Yeah, Lenny's mentioning this video right here. So if you head over to our video tab here, it's the second video that we have out. It's do this to pack and ship your Amazon FBM orders like a pro. 23 minutes of some really good content there. So highly recommend checking that out for basically just what Lenny said.
Yeah, that was a good one where you were running through how to find the best quotes, how to compare them, and kind of doing all of that pricing stuff to make sure that you're getting the best value and the best speed for the customer. But yeah, there's way more than we can sort of explain here, so definitely check that one out.
Definitely. Next question. Please tell me the best way for reducing costs from China to the US. Man, the best one.
Yeah, I mean,
Tough one.
probably just like throw out a few little ones.
Yeah.
Some of them are pretty obvious, but that's ultimately what they are. So you've got ocean shipping, you've got air shipping. Ocean's always going to be cheaper, but slower. But that's essentially what most people do to try to save money. The next level up from that is you can get better pricing if you fill an entire container rather than doing less than container load and doing part of a container and then your inventory is mixed in with other people's. But if you fill an entire container, you'll get slightly better rates. And so as you scale your business, you would aim probably to order more inventory, which you also get a bit of a discount the more units that you order, but then also the more you ship, you can get a discount that way as well. So those are like a couple of points. I would say in general, most likely the less stops you have between the product being picked up and getting to Amazon, the better. If it's stopping multiple times in the US, like you're getting it sent to yourself and then sent in again, etc., that is probably going to cost you more in the long term by having multiple stops. So probably the most direct route as possible. You might have one stop in the US, but I don't know, just in general, the less that you shipping it around, the better.
Yeah.
Those are probably the top things that come to mind for me.
Yeah, I would agree. And just like getting more quotes too. Like you can always ask your supplier for a quote doing DDP where they send it into Amazon the entire way versus EXW. We're stepping in a little bit more versus FOB. So I would just get more quotes from them, get more quotes from other freight forwarders, like really compare and see just if there's a big enough difference there that would make you want to switch, whether it's Incoterms, your shipping terms, or actually your freight forwarder.
Great.
Yeah, that's a good question. This is a really good one. So, what reasons will someone fail in doing Amazon FBA? What are some big ones?
It's the one, the first one that comes to mind. We do talk about this a lot, but finding selling a product that's not profitable
Yeah.
enough, or it might be profitable, but the margin is too low to really sustain the business. If you're only getting like a couple of dollars profit per unit, then it's like that might be technically profitable, but it's going to be very, very slow to grow. It's going to take you a long time to raise enough money to invest into a new product. So your business will be very stagnant. But then also the moment maybe the raw costs of the material goes up, or Amazon, you come into Q4 and you have higher storage fees, any sort of fluctuation with business expenses, which is totally normal, that profit margin is not going to be able to sustain you. So for me, I feel like that's the biggest one, selling a product that isn't profitable.
Yeah.
And that can be difficult because I know, the product research stage is pretty much always like the hardest part for people. It can be really frustrating. You can be looking for days and weeks looking for a product. And I know there can sort of be a point where you're like, I'm so tired of looking. This product seems okay. The profit margin's like a little bit less than I want, but like I just want to get started. And so I can understand why people might settle sometimes for a product that isn't as profitable as it should be. But I would encourage you to really hold out to find a product that is really profitable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the main one that comes to mind. Any others for you, Jake?
That's the biggest one. I think maybe I'll add one more is in the product research stage. If you want to make sure there's enough people wanting to buy that product. I mean, I think demand is the very first thing that will make or break a product. And then to your point, can you sell that profitably is the next question. So as long as there's enough people coming to Amazon consistently each and every day, each and every month to buy your product, then you can start worrying about all the other things like profitability, competition. But without that, everything else is already going to fail. So I would say, just to add on one more to yours, the two biggest things to look for in a product is really high demand and then really high profitability, which sounds simple, but I mean, those are the bases of everything else. Like you don't really think of anything else until you figure out those two factors first.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, we could certainly list lots of different pitfalls that people can get into. But I think these are probably like the bigger ones.
Yeah. Only other thing I can think of as well is not differentiating your product enough. So just because there's high demand, just because there's high profitability, doesn't mean people are going to see the value in buying your product. So like if you're just going to sell the exact same, coffee mug or tumbler, what's the reason someone would buy your product? So you do want to make sure that you are standing out, and that helps a lot with competition. When you're entering a niche that has high demand and also has maybe high profitability, you're probably not going to be the only person that figured that out and are selling a product in that category. So just make sure that there's a way to differentiate your product so that it's going to be easier for you to advertise. It's going to be more cost effective to advertise because your conversion rate is higher. Basically, just figuring out a way to increase your conversion rate by making your product different from everybody else.
Right.
From most people. Yeah. Okay. This is a good question. Is there a way to see which keyword the customer typed in for organic sales? So there's Amazon doesn't separate, like there's no like search term report for your business in terms of like what actually happened on the organic side. There is on the advertising side, of course. You can see the search terms that people use to buy your product and how profitable they were and how much you spent on it. Amazon's not giving you that report separated by organic sales, but there are some tools that you can use to see those keywords. Jungle Scout's Keyword Scout is one of them. So you can type in your ASIN or any ASIN on Amazon, and it's going to reverse ASIN search that product and basically show you the keywords that show up, show you the keywords that your product is showing up for, and then where it ranks on Amazon. So that's one great way of seeing all the keywords, really organic and advertising. And then there are some Amazon tools. So like inside Seller Central, there's a few tools that you can see. I'm blipping on the name right now, but they don't really tell you that whether it's organic or advertising, but they do show you keywords that people are using to find your type of product or your brand's product. So there are some ways, it's just not very direct that it's organic only.
Yeah, so when you're looking at what keywords your product appears for, you can make the assumption that you've received sales through those keywords.
Right.
You don't know how many, or you don't know that for sure, but typically those things are at least correlated, that if you're ranking fairly well for particular keywords, then there's a good chance that you've received sales or on there, but it's not a one-to-one.
Yeah. Okay, I actually don't know the answer to this. What is unsuitable inventory policy on Amazon? And I see there's like a follow-up question about what documents are required to win the appeal. Unsuitable inventory, if I'm getting this right, because I may have had an instance like this, but maybe I'm just totally not understanding the question fully. But I did one time send an inventory that had something wrong with it, and Amazon said it was unsuitable, or I think that was the word they used. And then they either put it in for me and they kind of like marked my account health, which stinks, but at least they got it in. Or I had to back it out. I've had to back out inventory before and relabel it. So I'm not sure what your experience is or if I'm understanding this correctly. But you may need to just ask Amazon more of like what the reasoning is for this and what you can do to appeal it or remedy the situation maybe.
Yeah.
Next question here is, what should be the minimum per product ROI on my first product?
Yeah, I guess just more of a rule of thumb, because I don't want to prescribe this for everyone, but generally we say aim for 100% ROI, which is essentially however much money comes out of your pocket, that's how much you ideally want to get in profit. So for example, it costs you $5 to get a product made and shipped, then you ideally want to get $5 back in profit after all of your expenses. When you take away the Amazon's FBA fees, etc., you want to get $5 in return. If you don't quite get that, that's okay, but again, that's like a good number to shoot for.
And then one like question I think a lot of people ask is that including advertising in your ROI that you're calculating? I think you could include it in there. There's not like a definitive answer of what you need. I think in our example, we're saying 100% ROI is without advertising, because you have to understand after your first launch period, most of your sales hopefully won't come from advertising. So you will get organic sales that you hopefully will be getting over 100% ROI. And then if your advertising sales come down to like even like 20%, you're still making up for it from your 100% plus organic sales. So yeah, I would say you don't need to add advertising fees, like estimated even, into your ROI projections. You're just trying to figure out, when I organically sell this to somebody, how much am I going to get back per sale?
Yeah, and I think the reason why we don't include, or one of the reasons why we don't include advertising, is because it fluctuates so much. You can fairly reliably say, this is my product cost, my shipping cost per unit, but a cost of advertising per unit is just fluctuates so much, because you can always like turn advertising off and eliminate that. Although you know, generally speaking, you want to keep advertising going, but it can vary so much that it's like hard to add that into the equation. But that is probably a good reason to stick to at least 100% ROI, and then that gives you, you know, a little bit of a buffer there if you are advertising.
Yeah, good question. The question here is, if our product doesn't work as expected, then how can we get rid of it from the Amazon warehouse? I was going to try to show this, but I'm probably not going to be fast enough to show this. But there is a few ways that you can get rid of inventory. So I'm just going to filter for our active products here. Let's just pretend we're going to get rid of some inventory for this ASIN. You can come over here and you can create a removal order right here. And you can just simply get that out of Amazon. And there's a couple of different ways of doing it. So you can liquidate it, which Amazon will basically try to like sell your product to a liquidator and give you a very small amount back, like maybe a couple dollars depending on your product. You could literally just return it to your address or wherever you are in the world, or you could have Amazon dispose it. I think there's a small disposal fee if I'm not mistaken. Maybe there isn't, but I'm pretty sure there would be. But these are essentially your three options to getting rid of your product. Hopefully that doesn't happen. You could always, try to advertise the heck out of your product just to get it out the doors and lose money that way. But yeah, those are your options there.
Great.
All right. Can we register a trademark in the U.S. without an LLC?
Oh, that's a good question. I think so. I think you could do it as an individual, if I
Right.
remember right. I don't know that for sure, but that's my understanding that you can do it as an individual. You don't need to be incorporated or an LLC.
I believe so too. But yeah, probably don't quote us
Yeah.
on that fully.
Yeah, I'd Google that.
Okay. Uncaged Will asked, how many times, many times I see in a selling list of products, there's one person 3 to 4 times. Could it be possible? Okay. Yeah, so that's a lot of times you'll maybe see if I'm understanding this correctly, on a buy box. You might see the same seller multiple times. So let's see if we can find Easygoing Home Textiles multiple times in this buy box. Typically what happens is they have different offers. So they'll have an FBA offer. They will have, no, so this isn't the case here. So a lot of times it's literally just the offer. So this seller is using FBA because it says ships from Amazon. Now sometimes you'll see ships from Easygoing Home Textiles, so it's FBM. You may even see Amazon Warehouse in there, like that last example where Amazon's basically selling a used version of your product. So typically that's what it is the offer is slightly different.
Yeah, good question.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. Can you use a virtual address for LLC? We talked earlier about using a trademark attorney address to do that for your trademark, but
I think I've done that before. I think I did that with my LLC where I can't remember the reason now, but I used the office of the business that set it up. They basically offered that service.
So it's essentially a virtual address, but not just choosing a random address.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know about the virtual part, whether because in my instance, it was I think it was a real address, but it just wasn't mine. It was using the office of this company. So yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. I couldn't say for sure.
Yeah. Okay. First time launching a product on Amazon and don't have any idea about the products that will sell in a month or two. How can we estimate how much inventory to order? So how much inventory should you order on your first round?
Yeah, so it's going to change for every single product. So the best way to go about it is to kind of see what everyone else is selling. So type in the name of your product. Let's say you're selling dog mats. You type in dog mats, and then you can see all of the products that are selling under that search term. You can use the Jungle Scout extension, and then that will just tell you all of their sales. So on that top page, you can see this person's doing 400, 300, 800. I would get an average and kind of see okay, on average, this product sells about 400 units per month. So you mightn't be able to sell that same amount to begin with, but you want to use that number because ultimately that's your goal. If you want to rank on that first page of search results, which typically is your goal, that's kind of where you want to be so that you get the most organic sales, then typically you need to be doing the same number of sales as the listings on that page in order to have a chance of being ranked there. So I would use that number, and again, let's say it's 400 units. I would use that number, and then in an ideal scenario, it's good to order up to 3 months worth of inventory if you can. Just essentially to make sure that you don't run out of stock and you've got time to order a second shipment and get that sent into Amazon. So if you've got about 3 months worth of inventory in there, probably about after the first month or so, you might want to place your second order, and then that might take about 4 or 5 weeks to manufacture, and then another 3 or 4 weeks to get sent in. So you can sort of see how you'll end up getting to kind of that 3-month mark. Now, if you don't have the money to buy that much inventory, that's okay, but just know that most likely you will run out of inventory and there might be a little bit of a gap between running out and getting your next shipment in. But that would be sort of the rule of thumb in an ideal world if you have the money available.
Awesome. Great answer. Next question. Do Amazon Post help increase sales?
Oh,
It's a good one. I would assume they would.
yeah, this is something I'm interested in learning about. So I've been playing around with like the influencer program and doing posts, recommending other products and doing it as more of an influencer. But I'm not sure about doing it yourself for your own, business. I am curious to look into that.
I was able to quickly pull up an example of a brand doing this. So this is one of these products we were just looking at. These Easygoing store sells it. And I came down here real quick and I noticed they are using Post as a brand. And you can see this whole carousel here, inspiration from this brand here. And so what's great about this, I'll click into one real quick so we can see it, is that they're taking up an entire carousel on the search results page. So I would assume that this is helping them get more sales because they're basically dominating a part of the page that is typically reserved for ads. And they're doing it. They're getting that spot for free. This is not an advertised post at all. So they're doing all these posts, and I don't know if this is the Inspire page or.
Well, I mean, I guess this is their storefront. But presumably, like,
it's also on
they would at least have the opportunity to be appearing in Inspire.
Yeah. And that's great. And they just dominated that little carousel there. So.
I mean, certainly Amazon is really pushing Inspire, and they've been, the last year or couple of years, they've really been incentivizing people to post a lot more, create content. So Amazon, if you try to think about, well, what does Amazon want? They seem to really be trying to push their social media feed. So I would suggest trying it out because it feels like Amazon wants you to. So I think it's probably worthwhile testing.
Definitely. Cool. All right. Next question here is for returns. When do I determine that it's too high, that Amazon will ban the listing? So maybe like if you have too much returns, Amazon will, do something to the listing. That is something that could happen.
Let's see. You can see your refund rate somewhere, or like you can
see your refund rate. I'm sure there's a way on Amazon too. we use Jungle Scout to do it.
Yeah.
But there is in your account health, you should be able to find more of your information about like if you're getting close to any type of suspensions. But in Jungle Scout, I can show real quickly here a way to see your return rate. So if you go to Sales Analytics and Profit Overview, you can do this on the product level by going to multi-product view. And then on the far right-hand side here, you'll see return rate for your product. So that's a really good way of just like checking what your return rate is. But in terms of like knowing if you're too high or not, you typically will find that in your account health settings if there's something going wrong and getting you close to a suspension. So yeah, I mean, each product and category is different. Like obviously apparel would get returned way more than like anything else, but make sure just to keep checking your return rate, whether it's on Jungle Scout or Amazon, and make sure it's just not going above your average.
Yeah, I don't know what the specific number is where it's like that percentage is too high, but yeah, essentially it's going to notify you in your like account health if it's starting to look get into like a danger zone.
Exactly.
Okay,
next question here is, how do I get brand approval in the US? So if you're looking to get brand registry in the United States, you could go and get a trademark outside of Amazon if you'd like. Yeah, just go get it through any type of trademark attorney, or you can use Amazon's IP Accelerator program. We've talked about this a lot here on the channel, and I personally love the program. I've used it myself. It's one of the best ways, in my opinion, to get a trademark for the purposes of selling on Amazon, because you're using Amazon vetted trademark attorneys, so you don't need to do the homework of like, who are some reputable attorneys out there. Amazon also caps how much they can charge you. So there's a maximum of what they're charging you, and I think it's under $1,000 for the initial paperwork. And then the greatest part is about it. Once you have that trademark filed, that trademark attorney will just send that information, all the paperwork, to Amazon to unlock brand registry for you. So you don't need to be hounding your trademark attorney to get in touch with Amazon. And you're like, wait, what's the email address? What do I tell them to say? It's like they already do that in the back end because they have that relationship with Amazon. So to get brand approval, specifically in the US, I think that's the best way or most simplified way of doing it.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, a few more questions here. This next question is, what filter should we set in Jungle Scout for daily sales in generic products? So maybe trying to find more generic products, like what filters can you use in Jungle Scout?
Yeah. Well, let's see. In a lot of our product research videos, we do give a lot of examples of different filters. I mean, we've talked about having high demand, so we would typically say look for at least 300 units per month, or even 400 or 500 units. Those 300, 400, 500 are sort of like good numbers as far as units sold. That would certainly tick the box for high demand. Then you can definitely play around with a lot of other filters. I try not to be, we want to give examples, but I also don't want to be too prescriptive and let people play around with these filters. But some other ones that I quite like, I like the star rating. So we talk about how important differentiation is. If you can find products that have a lower star rating, so let's say under 3.4 stars, which is actually pretty bad on Amazon, but at the same time, it gets 300 units per month. That represents a product that people are buying despite the fact that the star rating's not good. Yeah. And that sort of presents an opportunity for you to come in and hopefully improve on that product. If you can get a product that has a higher star rating, then you can likely capture a lot of those sales. So that's one strategy. Generally, you want to try to find lower competition. We, look at reviews as the way to find lower competition. What that looks like really depends. So it could be 100 or 150 reviews as a maximum. Out of all of these, reviews is probably the one that sort of shifts the most for me, the one that I am willing to budge on. Right. I'm not willing to budge on units sold, really want that to be high. And then once you do all your calculations, really want the profitability to be high. But the competition levels, if something has to give, then I would allow a niche or a product that has slightly higher reviews. Mm-hmm. At this stage, in terms of profitability, price is maybe the main influencer here. So we would typically say, look for nothing under, say, $20. Generally, the higher, the better. So under $20, the profit margins get very slim for most products. On the higher end, you can go as high as you like, but beyond probably around like $70, $80, you're going to need a lot more capital to afford that product. Like it's harder to, it's harder, or it costs a lot more to buy a product that's selling for $100 or $200. So usually, like 20 to 75 here is kind of a sweet spot for a lot of products. But hopefully, here's some ideas on some different filters that you can play with.
Yeah, and you got all these saved filters for you that you can mess around with, and you can even come down here to like save your own. So maybe you just want to like try something out new, and it's like this new strategy. So you put in a name here for it, and you can quickly revisit it again whenever you want to load that filter as well. So
yeah. Okay.
We have a bunch of content, like you said, on our channel, going through different strategies and different reviews or filters that we've used in the past.
For sure.
Okay, here, maybe we'll take one more question. Mm-hmm. And then, again, you guys can always ask your questions, whether we missed them or not, in the comments below, and we'll carry those over to the next video, which is next Thursday. And so this question here is about wholesale. So doing wholesale, monthly sales for product is over 1,500, so that's great. And there are 14 sellers. Can I sell this product? My net will be 37%. So I assume you're looking to sell this product potentially. It's got great demand. There's 14 sellers. Maybe you're wondering if that's going to be too competitive. Is why you added that there? I'd say first off, and not to like cop out because I'll give an answer here, but we have some great wholesale content, and one of our most recent videos on wholesale is from Brian Connolly. He works at Jungle Scout. He does wholesale, so he's an expert, and he actually shows you what he considers when looking for wholesale opportunities. And one of the things he mentioned is it really doesn't matter how many sellers are on it. It really just matters like if you can actually get in the buy box with them. So can you price your products competitively to be rotated in with them? And so in this case, if there's 14 sellers, I'd mostly look at how many of them are within the price range that you can sell at. So if your profit margins are going to be 37%, is that 37% at like the lowest price that you're able to sell it at? If that's the case, and it sounds like a good opportunity based on all the other factors, then I'd say go for it. I think there's some more factors there as well, but any other thoughts about competition or I guess anything in general?
Not so much. I think you pretty much covered it. Like, I guess you want to see out of those 14 sellers, how many of them are likely to be rotated. And generally, I believe there's like the 2% rule. Is that right? Where you ideally want to be within 2% of sort of like the buy box price or the lowest.
Yeah, 2% of I guess it's technically the lowest price. So if the lowest price is 30, or I guess to keep it super simple, $10. You want to be around 8, 9, 10, or 11 or $12. You don't want to undercut them by more than 2% because then they might undercut you. It's just a race to the bottom. But you don't want to be more than 2% over their price as well.
So of those 14 sellers, you might see that only like 7 are actually within that, and the others might be priced completely differently. So that's probably more likely your true sellers. But yeah, to that point, if you're within that range, then you're most likely going to get rotated through the buy box, and you may not, you won't capture all 1,500 of those sales, but you'll be able to capture a portion of them. Maybe the math you could do is, I suppose, figure out how many sellers you think could be rotated through, and then divide the 1,500 by that number. That's not going to be an exact science by any means, but it might give you an idea of how much you could possibly make. But even if you're not making as many sales, a net margin, if it is 37%, or even if it's not, if it's even like 30% or 25%, like those are still good numbers. So it seems like a good opportunity from what I'm reading here, if you can get into that buy box.
Definitely. And just to kind of reference what I was mentioning earlier, this is the video, if you go to our videos tab, from Brian Connolly right here. So I highly recommend checking out this video to kind of see how he goes about product research in terms of wholesale opportunities. But all right. Yeah, so I think that's the last live question that we're going to answer today, but hopefully you got a ton of value out of this video. If so, let us know by hitting the like button down below. Hopefully this audio was okay. It will be much improved next week. So thanks for sticking around. If you saw the beginning of this video where we weren't actually had any audio at all. So thank you guys so much for this, and we'll see you in next week's live Q&A.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care, guys.